Hello, Mr. Hunter here. Just wanted to say big well done to so many of you for getting work back to me so quickly on the Treaty of Locarno and the Kellogg-Briand Pact. Just to go over those before we get into what you're actually doing today, in case anyone wants to really stretch their notes any further or just could do a bit of revamping. Both of these, on the face of it, were really positive moves by the League of Nations, and it must have been really exciting for those people who are actually in the room at the time when they were both signed. The Treaty of Locarno guarantees borders, and the Kellogg-Briand Pact is a peace treaty. So, in theory, at least, both should guarantee the League's aims of promoting peace and long term. However, both had quite major flaws. For Locarno, it basically meant that Germany had to were fully agreeing that they accepted the Treaty of Versailles, which particularly angered the nationalists and people such as Adolf Hitler, and was a big stick that they would use to beat the Weimar government with later on, as we well know from our Germany unit. And Kellogg-Briand was, as I said, it was a fantastic agreement, and as I also said in yesterday's lesson, it's still technically in law today. However, it had a major flaw in that it cannot be enforced. There's no League of Nations army. It's just an agreement. It's a piece of paper that all the countries have signed. But you know, if there's issues later on, as spoiler alert, there were going to be, then there's no way of really enforcing that agreement. So both very good, very interesting, fascinating documents, but nevertheless with some major flaws. Now we come into what we're looking at today, and we're going to, rather than doing lots of little tasks, I want us to just go straight into a 16-mark question. And the question will be, the reduction of its armed forces was the harshest punishment faced by Germany from the Treaty of Versailles. How far do you agree with this statement? Explain your answer. Now, do note there are 16 marks available for this, with an additional 4 available for spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So, take care to write professionally. Don't write informally. Don't use abbreviations. Try to really make sure that your full stops are in the right place, capital letters are in the right place, and that the language that you're using is academic. Okay. In the latest of our series of comparing exam questions to movie villains, etc., I've compared this question to the cyber demon from Doom. And the reason for that is you need to have plenty of ammunition. In other words, SPED, statistics, people, evidence, dates, to defeat this monster. You have to tackle this question from multiple angles. So tackle the named factor. In this case, it's the Treaty of Versailles and the reduction of Germany's armed forces and the impact that would have on the country, and then move on to 2 other factors in detail. But remember, your ammunition here is your SPED. As for how to actually break this question down, from the top tips, you need to organise it into 3 big points or reasons, making sure you cover them one by one from the question first, and 2 then of your own. Include detailed examples to support your argument, link and prioritize. Each paragraph must make a clear point that is directly in response to the question. Okay, so don't go off on tangents. Make sure you are taking a moment every now and then to just reread that question and ensure that what you're writing down is directly answering that, and ensure that it leads to a convincing final judgment. There are some sentence starters there. So X can be argued as the main reason because blah blah blah. An example of this would be blah blah blah. This is significance because blah blah blah. This links to blah 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 because blah blah blah. Do that paragraph. Use that paragraph covering 3 different. Use that paragraph to cover 1 point, and then do it again 2 more times. So you'd have 3 paragraphs with each one attacking a major point, leading up to a conclusion of what you think is the harshest punishment faced by Germany from the Treaty of Versailles. Now, we remember back to this and we remember to the earlier parts of this course as well as our Germany learning, the way to summarise the the Treaty of Versailles effects on Germany is Mary had a little lamb. Land, army, money, and blame. So the first one that you should really focus on is army or military in your answer. And the things to consider with this is that Germany was only allowed 100,000 soldiers in their army and conscription was banned. Their navy was only allowed 6 ships. No submarines or air force allowed at all, and the Rhineland is demilitarized. Okay, so these are all examples of pieces of evidence that you could include in your first paragraph in response to this question. Now, the second one that I think is actually really key here and is going to be a worthwhile one to look at in your second paragraph. By the way, this is just a guide on how to follow it. If you want to do your own thing or go take your own angle on it, that's absolutely fine as long as it answers the question appropriately. But the second one I would use is blame. Germany, remember, had to sign a clause accepting guilt for starting World War I. And although this might seem, again, just like another agreement or another piece of paper that Germany had to sign, it is extremely important and is probably the most important part of the Treaty of Versailles, because it means that Germany has to accept whatever punishments they are given. And it's used as legal justification for the 6.6 billion pound 6.6 billion mark fines and the reduction in armed forces, etc., etc. Okay. Then your third paragraph, I'm not going to point you in any direction apart from to suggest the 2 areas you could look at are the territorial losses Germany had with regards to land, and the reparations, the money that they had to pay and the impact this would have had on Germany and whether that would have been really harsh. I'm leaving it up to you to make that judgment, and I'm leaving it up to you to make your own research by looking back through your notes. So again, this is why it's so important to take good notes in class, as well as do your own look up stuff on BBC Bitesize if you need to, or whatever, to remind yourself of how these things impacted on Germany and get that sped into your answer. But as such, up to you. So, sentence starters. The reduction of its armed forces can be argued as the harshest punishment Germany faced as a result of the Treaty of Versailles because, etc. Then you look at the war guilt clause in your second paragraph. In your third paragraph, you can choose between either looking at the territorial losses Germany faced or the reparations that they had to pay. Of course, still leading to what you think is the main, the harshest punishment faced by Germany from the Treaty of Versailles. So that's all you have to do. If you can get that to me, then I will make sure that by the time I'm teaching you next, that you have some feedback and that we have some ways to work on this. It's your first attempt at a 16 plus 4 mark question of this type in a GCSE level. So as I'm sure you've realised from our previous learning, we're not expecting 16 out of 16 from all of you, but give it your best shot. The key bit here is really your GPAs. In fact, that's probably the more important bit of this. And the final thing I really want to say is how proud I am of all of you. You've all done fantastically well in adapting to these new circumstances. So many of you have really worked hard to get work to me, have been asking me questions, and really getting getting to grips with this, which I'm really, really impressed by. So as a treat, I leave you with a video of 5 random men I found on the internet clapping. Enjoy.